always meets with families. So I decided today I'm going to the funeral. I've not returned to that house since I was sent to boarding school, and now 10 years later, my life resolved, I'll go back. Because of the death of our last grandmother, she hated me, and I hated her. I'm using her as a pretext to force me to go. To forgive them, I guess. It scares me. But if I don't do it now, I never will. I'll see my sister, Elvira, at the funeral. I was 7 years old when she found me, masturbating in a meadow near the lake. She was transfixed looking at me. I kept touching myself, and for a few seconds she looked at me without blinking. Suddenly she completely changed her look. I still believe that she saw something in me more than a sister and liked it. Then she shuddered and deformed her face to shout as loud as she could. I was shivering with both my hands between my legs. They put me in a hot shower with scalding water and bathed me, scrubbing my skin. There were so many birds gathering at the windowsill. They fluttered in so strongly. I think they must have felt something when I asked for help. They became so enraged, trying. My brothers dressed me in a kind of straitjacket with one arm free so I could eat. I never took off my underwear, never completely naked. I never left the house. I did that for almost 6 months, until crying I begged them to set me free. But I felt nothing. When I was 13 years old, I wanted to spend my birthday with my 2 best friends, Simon and Sarah, but my parents wouldn't let me. The day before, I'd escaped from school to go to the lake with them. On that supposedly special day, I was surrounded by people pretending to celebrate my birthday when in reality they were just making sure I wasn't doing anything dangerous or stupid. When I went to bed, I climbed through my window onto the tree, jumped and ran. We escaped, the 3 of us. They were waiting for me up the road with a bike. We cycled and cycled for hours in the night sky. Left and right and left and right and then straight ahead. And then we arrived at Lava Tree. Everyone called it that because the soil was hotter than usual, hotter than it was supposed to be. We made a fire and drank a bottle of rum in half an hour and laughed at stupid things and vomited and lost consciousness. Then the smell of smoke and coughing, there was a loud explosion and we woke with a jump. The whole night sky was illuminated. Another explosion, stronger, pushed us away. We woke again, but this time to sirens of the fire engine. I put my face to the ground for a few seconds. It was hotter. Much hotter. The lava tree was owned by a blacksmith. He used it as fuel for his forge. He died in his sleep. Later, in the car, I'll never forget the words of my father. Well, anyway, they're going to lock her up. We have to stop her.
We have to lock her up.
When I was 5 years old, my parents wouldn't let me swim in the lake without a float. My younger brother could. Yes, of course he could. He was a man. All that summer, I was the only one with a float. All my cousins, even the little kids, didn't have floats. They told me it was for my own good, but in reality it was just to humiliate me. One morning, when the sun was up, but hadn't started to warm the day yet, I was surprised to find my little brother urinating behind a tree. So I took him behind the spring. Children didn't play in that part of the lake. It was too deep. He couldn't touch the bottom. And I pushed him in. My dad launched into the water as he took my brother. I waited a few minutes to see if anyone would come back for me. Whenever I remember my childhood or adolescence, a few seconds pass. My gaze becomes fixed straight ahead, unblinking, and tears drown my eyes. The night before my parents locked me up in boarding school, I couldn't sleep, thinking I was still a virgin. I needed to be with a man. Anyway, I got on my floral dress and put on some makeup from my sister's room. I escaped through the window and went to the other side of the street where Robert, he was 18, only 4 years older than me. He was cutting firewood. In silence, I went up to him and whispered in his ear, "I won't tell anyone." I put my hand on his penis for a second and rubbed it. Robert quickly became a wild sexual predator. His tongue swept the whole of my body, and my vagina, it felt cold and wet. Slowly he penetrated me, soft at first, and then he began to get harder and stronger, and his neck sweated, and I pulled at the beads of sweat with my tongue. Biting my nipples, he took my hips and smelt me. He was testing me. 3 years later, my sister sent me a letter telling me she was going to marry Robert. She'd got pregnant, and he'd told her about us. I felt shame. But for my sister, death always meets with families, so I decided today I am going to the funeral. To forgive them, I guess. It scares me. But if I don't do it now, I never will.